Well, we've reached our last chapter, dear students, and this chapter combines retirement planning and estate planning. So we'll spend the first presentation discussing retirement planning, which in some ways will be a bit of a review and recap of some themes that have gone through the entire class. We'll then have a quick presentation on a fun topic, the baby boomer generational time bomb, which sounds kind of scary, but in reality isn't as bad as people make it out to be. And then we'll have our last presentation on the last and final chapter of life, and that's death. Estate planning. We don't call it death planning, we call it estate planning. But let's turn our attention now to retirement planning. By 2030, 76 million baby boomers will have retired, but only 46 million Gen Xers will have come up to replace them. What's going on? Well, we'll see. We'll see in our second presentation. But right now, let's take a look at an oft-heard lament of senior citizens. If I knew I was going to live this long, I would have done things a whole lot differently. Exactly. Yeah, you know what I'm going to... You already know what I'm going to tell you to do, right? So, but let's do it anyway. Slide number 2. Why should you think about retirement planning now? I'm talking to you, millennials, in your early 20s or maybe even earlier. Well, what's happening? People are spending more years, 16 to 20 years in retirement. Sound like a test question? Yeah, 16 to 20 years in retirement. It used to be 2 or 3. Right, people used to retire at 62 and die at 64. Or retire at 65 and die at 67. Or maybe not even make it to 65. But that was 70 years ago, folks. People are living far longer now. And so we have to prepare. It's a great problem to have, isn't it? I think so. It's a great problem to have. A private pension plan and Social Security are most often insufficient to cover the cost of living. And people are saying, what private pension plan? They're all disappearing and being replaced by defined contribution plans. But the news, as we'll discuss, is not so bad. It's not so bad. Inflation may, the book says, no. Inflation will diminish the purchasing power of your retirement savings. Inflation doesn't retire when you retire. It's a given. And over the last 80 some odd years, it's been 2-3%. So there are times when it goes up higher than that. Most notably the 70s and into the very early 80s. But for the most part, that's what it's been. And it will diminish your purchasing power. If we continue at 3% in about 25 years, remember the rule of 72? Prices will have doubled. Slide number 3. How do you estimate your retirement living expenses? Well, it's not easy. It really is not easy. And most people find that they were way off. They either thought they needed more than they really need, or they found out they needed a lot less than they thought they were going to need. Spending patterns will change. Some expenses may go down or stop. Work, clothing, housing, income taxes. But other expenses will probably go up, such as medical or leisure. And in some families, it's just given. It's expected that the grandparents are going to be giving gifts and contributions and possibly paying for private school. I'm glad I don't have that in my family. For the grandchildren, paying for private school for the grandchildren. Inflation will raise the amount you need to cover your expenses over your probable how many years? 16 to 20 or more years in retirement. The tricky wild card, in my humble opinion, is healthcare. It is the only thing that truly scares yours truly, and with respect to my wife and my retirement. That's the only thing that really scares me is healthcare, because as we discovered in Chapter 9, it's out of control, and any kind of bipartisan attempts to solve the healthcare crisis have been so far totally destroyed by partisanship. So we'll see. That's what scares me. Everything else I got covered. Thank you very much. Slide number 4. Here is the Bureau of Labor Statistics take on the average, whatever that is, how older, 65 and up, household and how it spends its money. And this, to me, is a real tragedy, that the average elderly person spends about a third on housing. That's what you should be spending while you're working, not when you're not working. And if you've purchased a house and paid down the debt, this should go way down. Now, there are always going to be costs to housing, folks. I mean, you don't live free. But if you can pay that mortgage down, maybe, as we showed in Chapter 7, pay it a little bit faster than 30 years, you should have that housing down. I think this one, medical, is going to be higher because we're living longer, and do you remember the statistic? People from ages 60 to 70 use more healthcare services, more healthcare dollars than they did from age 0 to 59. Food and entertainment and insurance and contributions and transportation. Now here's another thing that to me seems a little too much for retirement. You don't need a car. You certainly don't need 2 cars. And who knows what will happen with these driverless cars. Someday you won't want a car. You will just log in and say, I need a car at this time to take me here. The thing will show up without a driver. You'll pop in and it'll take you to where you want to go, and then it'll go off and do it for somebody else. I think it's going to be a winner. We'll see. But I tease my wife and say, wouldn't you like to sell your car in retirement? And she goes, you can sell your car. So I did. And we share. Actually, we have another vehicle that's mostly used for carting stuff around, and we'll use that when we need to cart ourselves around. But it's a minivan that we use to cart stuff around. Slide number 5: planning your retirement housing. Where are you going to live? Consider the cost of living. Consider the taxes. But the truth is, dear students, that most people, 6 out of 7, will prefer to remain in their homes. Because after 30 years, it's not just a house, it's your home. You might have raised your kids there. Yes, so it's not someplace that people normally want to leave. Some people will, but 6 out of 7 will remain in their homes. And a reverse mortgage, which we talked a little bit about in Chapter 7. Be careful. These things are potential landmines because they love to prey on the elderly. But these things can help people live in their homes for the remainder of their life, because the reverse mortgage, unlike a regular mortgage, cannot be foreclosed upon. So they can't kick you out. If you choose to leave, they're going to want to be paid, so you're going to have to sell the house, or sometimes the heirs, the children or the grandchildren, will refinance so they can keep the house. But you cannot be kicked out while you're still alive. And if you do choose to go to a continuing care retirement community, you will find that these things have gotten very good, folks. They're really amazing. You get a little apartment. Sometimes they're not a little. Sometimes they're very spacious. And you don't have to go to the community gathering where they have dinner, and you can do your own laundry, you can do your own cleaning, or as your needs increase, you can have food brought to you, or go to the common area for meals and social gatherings and entertainment, and then you can hire staff to help you clean and do your laundry. So they're amazing. We were involved with one with my mother-in-law, and I was impressed. Now, here's something that I have talked with people in the past and done my best to try to convince them, because once you leave San Diego, if you sell your place, it's going to be really hard for you to get back in. So if you do want to relocate, my advice is to research carefully and rent your home for at least a year, maybe 2. Because if you sell the home in San Diego, it will be very difficult, no matter where you go, unless you go someplace more expensive like the Bay Area or New York. But no, it's going to be very difficult for you to come back. So my advice would be to rent for a year or 2. And more Americans are retiring abroad. Costa Rica, anyone? Well, careful. You think you're not going to have to pay your income taxes, but that's not true. Unless you renounce your citizenship, you're going to have to pay your income taxes. You don't have to pay state income taxes anymore. Healthcare is a serious issue. And if you do not pay into Medicare while you're gone, which makes sense, I'm not using it, right? I'm out of the country. But then if you come back and say you're going to, I want to join Medicare now, no. They're going to make you go back and pay as if you had been in the system, right? They're not going to say, it's great, you go ahead and go have fun while you're still healthy, and then you come back when you're sick. No, we're not going to play that game. So you have to be careful. Talk with the Social Security, talk with the Medicare expert, at the agency. I met several people in Morelia, Mexico, which is a beautiful Mexican city. It looks like Europe. It's absolutely gorgeous, and most Americans have never heard about it, who were living off of their Social Security alone very comfortably in Morelia. And they were buying the Mexican health insurance. At least one was. I forget what the other person did. I asked him, because I'm very interested whenever I hear people saying that they've retired abroad. I want to know how it's going. Costa Rica is very popular. Ecuador is popular. Many go to the Philippines. What's the Baguio? Baguio is the place where there's lots of expats there living there. Thailand. So certain places in Europe. Most of Europe is very expensive, but some places are not. And so think about it. Slide number 6. Social Security. Folks, when they ask millennials if they believe whether or not they will see a Social Security's check or whether or not they will see an alien in their lifetime, more millennials believe they will see an alien spacecraft, UFO, in their lifetime than a Social Security check. And this is unfortunate because, Social Security is not perfect. Nothing we humans ever have. But it's been darn good. Here's the problem with Social Security. When it was designed, it was never meant to be the sole source of retirement income. They called it one leg of a 3 or 4-legged stool. They still wanted people to own a home, real estate. They wanted people to save for retirement and have a pension plan. And yet, somewhere along the line, people got it in their little heads that, no, I don't have to worry about retirement. I got Social Security. And now we're at the point where it's been bad-mouthed so much that people say it's not going to be around. Well, that's ridiculous. It will be around. It will change. It will have to change. But we've faced problems before, and we'll fix them. And that's more about this when we get to the next presentation about the baby boom generation and its retirement. So full benefits were originally at age 65, but they've moved up for younger folks to 67. And you can get an earnings and benefits statement. Once you turn a certain age, they send it to you, and you can always go online and ask for them to send it to you. And so don't worry, folks. Social Security will be around, but it is not your sole source. In fact, you should consider it a minor part, no more than 15-20%. You'll see that the Social Security Administration recommends about a quarter, 25, 26%. But you should not count on this as your sole source of income. Okay? All right. Slide 7. When it was originally designed and started back in the late 30s, the full benefits were accrued at 65. And then when you were born at 68, then you see it going up to 65 years and 2 months, 4 months. And then until finally 1960, you have to wait until 67 to be fully vested. Now, does that mean you have to wait until 67 years of age to actually take your Social Security? No. You can take it at 62, but it will be reduced substantially. Well, that makes sense. It's an actuarial calculation. In many ways, folks, it's like an annuity. Remember we discussed annuities? It's like an annuity. The Social Security Administration looks at how long you're going to live. Well, actually, it was the Congress that mandated these, and I'm sure they had plenty of help from the folks at Social Security. But if you take the money early, 62, or before the year you become fully vested, you're going to take a hit. Every year after that, if you hang on, your amount will go up 8% a year, which is a tidy little sum until you hit 70, and then it doesn't make sense for you to not take it anymore because it doesn't go up anymore. And you'll hear countless arguments, people yelling back and forth at one another whether you should take it early or take it late, and it's a very, very difficult decision, and it's totally dependent upon your situation. I have helped people with this, and what I do is create a little spreadsheet that shows people how long they have to wait to catch up. If they start taking it at 62 versus 65, how long would you have to wait if you started taking it at 65 before it caught up to what you were making with 62? And sometimes it's not until you're 80 or 78 or 84, and people say, well, I'll take it now. Or they say, no, I'm going to hang on. A lot of it depends on you. All of it depends on you. Everyone is different. Slide number 8. Now, I want you to write these two phrases down because people can't remember them. I know they're not the best phrases. Defined benefit, and the next slide is defined contribution. Okay, so write those two. I write them on the board in the face-to-face class because I want people to remember them. Many people call the defined benefit plan a traditional benefit plan or a traditional pension plan. And this is what most employers used to offer their employees. The employer will pay you a certain amount per month when you retire based on your pre-retirement salary, how long you've worked, and your age. When I first started teaching at Southwestern, I was only going to be there for one semester. It was a temporary position. And they give you all the packages, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm looking at the State Teachers Retirement System, CalSTRS, and, my pay, I took a 20% pay cut, but I figured, what the hell, one semester, what are they going to do, fire me? I didn't know what I was doing. And and I'm looking at this State Teachers Retirement System, and I'm thinking, this is not bad. This is not bad. This is pretty darn good. And the idea, this was a long time ago, folks, was that, yes, you are earning less money than your private employee counterparts. That's why we're offering you a good pension, because you're not going to have the same opportunity to build up your nest egg that somebody who's making quite a bit more than you are. And so that was one, not the only, but that was one of the decisions, one of the factors in my decision. The major factor is I just love to teach. I just absolutely love it. I can't imagine not doing it, even though I have my hands in other things out in the industry. I think that's important, but my true love is teaching. And so I thank you, Southwestern Community College and CalSTRS. Now, what has happened? Right, it's become a political a football, because many of the pension plans that were, and some of them were much more generous than the public pension plans, they're going away. The employers don't want them anymore. And so now the private employees have pension envy, They say, why should the public employees have this good pension? And you know, it's a question that needs to be raised and discussed intelligently. It won't be, don't worry. And why are employers getting rid of these things? Well, for the very same reason we talked about a few slides ago, why you need to start thinking now. Because people are living longer. It's a great problem to have, but it's still a problem that we have to deal with. With these traditional pension plans, these defined benefit plans, the employer made the decisions for you and their contributions. So you make contributions, they make contributions, but no matter what happens to the investments, the benefit stayed the same, unless the fund goes belly up, which some did. For some of them, it was because the company they literally raided the pension plans and then went bankrupt and said, sorry, we're bankrupt. So there's a lot of hanky-panky in this industry. I apologize. But Social Security is an example of a defined benefit plan. It is based on how much money you make, how long you worked, and your years when you retire. Now, the other one that is becoming much more popular is defined contribution plan. And I want you to remember that. They're also called employer pension plans. And although 401k plan is just one of many types of employer pension plans, it's certainly the one that gets the most press, gets the most notoriety, and they have become very popular. And why? Because as we said, the employers are just very reticent to take on an employee as a retiree who might live 30 some odd years or more. So who are they putting the onus on to save for your retirement? You! With money pension, purchase pension plans, with stock bonus plans, with profit sharing plans, and the one that we just said is gaining the most popularity, the 401ks, the 403bs. And why are they called 401k, 457, 403b, 401a? These are sections of the Internal Revenue Code that allow an employer to set up this plan, and if you do what you're supposed to do and your employer does what they're supposed to do, the IRS blesses and kisses, Domini, Domini, Sanctus, Sanctus, Spiritus. You don't have to pay taxes until you retire. They are tax deferred. And they allow the employer to make non-taxable contributions called the match. The truth is, dear students, as we've tried to show you over and over again, if you start early, if you are consistent, if you are prudent, and you don't panic, you have the opportunity to have an income that far exceeds anything the pension plan's ever going to pay you. The opportunity for tremendous success in retirement is there. Right. You know what I'm going to say next. The opportunity for screwing up royally is also there. Because if you don't contribute, or if you contribute a little bit and think, oh, okay, I don't have to worry, or if you do what a lot of people do and wait till the market goes way up and then put all their money on red number 7, the aggressive growth fund, and then the market falls 50% and they lick their wounds and pull it out and put it back in the money market account, only to watch the market turn around and go up 70%. In other words, you are responsible. And there are going to be some serious winners and there's going to be some serious losers. And it is my sincerest desire that you are amongst the greatest of the winners. Stick with us, kids. We'll show you how. We already did. I hope. And if you always ask me. You can always ask me more questions. But by going through chapters 11, 12, and 13, and the alternative, the real estate, you can set yourself up pretty darn well, providing the world doesn't end. So we go to the IRS and we say, IRS, 401k, 403b, those are really dumb names. can't you come up with a better name? And they say, oh, yes, we call them salary reduction plans. You gotta love the folks at the IRS. That's what I want. I want my salary reduced. All these things are tax deferred, or at least used to be, until the option, which we often call the Roth 401k, the Roth 403b. That's not their real names. There is a Roth IRA that is in the law, but there's no Roth 401k in the law. That's just what everybody calls them because they operate like a Roth IRA, which we'll describe this in detail later on. But those are after-tax contributions, and they're pretty cool, and we'll discuss those in a moment. So, how do you estimate your retirement living income? It ain't easy. It ain't easy. Every financial website now has these retirement calculators, and really all they are, folks, are marketing tools. You type in all this in. No, that's not true. Some of them are actually quite good. These two, the American Funds and the T. Rowe Price, are pretty darn good. Vanguard's is good. Fidelity's, I've tried that one. That's okay. I thought it was good. I like American T. Rowe Price better. But remember, everybody's different. And what they do is they ask you all these questions, and you put in your numbers, and you tell them what you think you're going to have to spend in retirement, and it comes back and says you're not saving enough. Here, talk to one of our representatives. But no, try them, see if they help. The problem here is, folks, is not only are there a lot of variables about how much you're going to spend, health and the like, you don't know how long you're going to live. You just don't know, and that's why those traditional pension plans and those annuities are just so tempting, because you can't outlive the income. It doesn't matter in the case of the annuities that they're going to give you a lousy income. They just love that guarantee from the insurance company. So we have the longevity calculator that we saw back in Chapter 10, right? How long do you think you're going to live? You don't know. And as we said, Social Security starts sending you these estimated benefits at age 60, but you can request one at any time. So let's now turn our attention to the types of retirement accounts, and we're going to do a little bit of review, but go more into depth, because back in Chapter 11 we described the difference between a taxable and a tax-qualified account. So we're going to take a look at those yet again. There are two major types. Sounds like a test question. Pre-tax and post-tax. The pre-tax are the older ones, and those are the 401ks, the 403bs, the 457s, the 401as, the TSP for the Federal Employees Thrift Savings Plan, a very good 401k, by the way. The traditional IRA used to just be called an IRA, but now it's called the traditional IRA, so to differentiate it from the Roth IRA, which was named after a guy named William Roth. A SEP IRA, a simple IRA, a KEO for self-employed people. They all basically work the same way, although there are differences between them. You get a tax break now. You get to deduct the contributions from your income tax. The money grows tax deferred, meaning you don't have to pay any taxes on it until you retire, and then you're taxed in retirement. Starting in 1998, the Roth IRA came along. And then in 2006, the Roth 401k, the Roth 403b came along, but your company does not have to offer it. They don't have to offer it. And how does this work? Well, it's the opposite. Instead of getting a tax break now, you get a tax break later in retirement. Very cool. Yes, very cool, and we will take a look at that in detail. But first, let's review this slide. Does this look familiar? Indeed, right. We discussed this in Chapter 11. Taxable accounts have no limits on the types of investments. Now, I crossed out the ones I think you should stay far away from, folks. But that doesn't mean you will. You can if you want. If you're that so inclined, go right ahead and do options. I wish you a lot of luck. And there's no limit on the amount of money you can put in. And every year, if you make money, you're going to get a 1099, which says to the IRS, okay, I made X amount in dividends, X amount in interest, X amount in capital gains. And if it's real estate, rent, exactly. So you pay taxes every year. The retirement accounts are tax-qualified accounts. Tax-qualified is what the IRS calls them. And the Congress limits the types of retirement investments you can put in there. Why? Because they don't want you gambling with your retirement. Stocks and stock mutual funds are risky enough, dear students, right? And so are some bonds, but they don't want you to play fast and loose with futures, options, shorting, things that are just really, really scary. They also put strict limitations on your contributions. And if you remember back in Chapter 3, I asked you to do a little research, and we'll give you the numbers again if you don't remember. They don't want people putting $1 million into these things. And sometimes in an exam I'll say, or an assignment, what would you do with $100,000? I'll put it in my Roth IRA. No, you won't. Okay, don't do that. Because first of all, the company will kick it back and say, sorry, we our business rules say we can't do this. And if you are successful, the IRS will eventually, it'll take them a long time, folks. They work slowly. They'll send you a friendly little letter, official business only, saying you goofed. You got to take a bunch of that money out now, and if you don't, we're going to penalize you 6% every year you leave it in. And so, if you do what you're supposed to do, only invest in the things that are allowed, only invest a certain amount every year, the IRS is going to allow you to defer those taxes. You can usually take the contributions and write them off your taxes, give you a tax break now, not have to pay taxes every year until you retire. In the case of the Roth IRA, the Roth 401k, the Roth 403b, you don't get a tax break now, but it's tax-free. Very cool. Slide 13. So, let's now focus on the various types of retirement accounts, tax-qualified accounts, whatever you want to call them. The individual retirement arrangement, what? I thought it stood for individual retirement account. Well, everybody in the world calls it the individual retirement account, except for the IRS, because literally the law says that it's called the individual retirement arrangement. So the IRS is the only one who uses that, because that's their job. But everybody else calls it individual retirement account. It is certainly the most popular personal retirement account. And now the IRS refers to it as the traditional IRA. And it hasn't changed since before the implementation of the Roth IRA. But they did that to stop confusion, to help prevent confusion between the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA, even though there is still quite a bit of confusion. But that's probably a good idea, huh? Anybody with earned income can contribute to a traditional IRA. And typically your contributions are tax deductible, which means you get a tax break now. Well, there is an exception. If you have a retirement plan at your employment, and such as a 401k, 403b, employer-sponsored plans as they're called, then you make over a certain amount of money, I forget exactly the amounts, but they're in the very generous amounts, then you can no longer deduct it from your taxes. It's not It's not a tax deductible contribution. You can still contribute, but then it becomes a non-deductible tax contribution. And so what you have to do is keep track of how much was non-deductible and how much was deductible, because when you go to take the money out years later, you don't want the IRS saying the whole thing's taxable. Right? Exactly. And the contributions limits rise over time with inflation. And way back in Chapter 3, I asked you to go look it up, right? Do you remember? You don't have to remember. It was just the experience of dealing with the tax code. It's $5,500 in 2018. Same for the Roth IRA. And if you're 50 or over, you get to add $1,000. Now, this is very generous for the vast majority of us. Some people say, why can't I put more? Well, that was the idea. It's supposed to be for us working grunts, not supposed to be for very wealthy people to shelter a ton of money away. Your investment grows tax deferred, and you pay taxes on the money as you withdraw it once you're retired. This is normally at age 59 and a half. There's a way for you to get the money out sooner. You tell the IRS, hey, I'm 55, I'm 57, I want to retire. And what they will do is they will create a schedule that says, okay, this is how much you can take out. In fact, this is how much you have to take out for the next so many years. And you, even if you decide to go back to work, you now have to continue that. Right. It's a little bit of a straitjacket. So they want you to wait until you're 59 and a half. Now, once you are 70 and a half, you're mandatory. You have to start taking the money out. You don't have a choice. And this gets some people very angry. In fact, the gentleman who the Roth IRA is named after, William Roth, was a senator at the time, and he was in his 70s. He was still working, but still he was having to take out money out of his retirement account. So he was a little perturbed about that, and he made sure that the Roth IRA did not have the same mandatory withdrawals once you hit age 70 and a half. And slide 14 shows the IRA's many cousins and siblings and in-laws. As we said, there are employer-sponsored plans called 401ks, 403bs, 457s, 401as, or a few others. The one for the federal government is the TSP, Thrift Savings Plan, which is actually a pretty darn good plan, well run by a company named BlackRock. And we use that Thrift Savings Plan for an assignment in the BUS121 Introduction to Investments class. It's a pretty good plan. So you want to take a look at it, especially if you're a federal employee in the military. Look at the limit, $18,500. That's a lot of money, folks, to put away in a retirement account. But let's say you are in your 20s and you're married, and you both make a pretty good salary. Live off of one of the salaries, and then put the other salary into a 401k. You do that for 5 years. Invest prudently with an eye toward long-term compounded growth. Don't panic when the market falls. You'll never have to put a dime away after 5 years, 10 years. Right. It's pretty amazing. And, of course, once you hit 50, you can add an extra $6,000. And these limits go up with inflation every so often. The SEP IRA is another version of the IRA, I forget it, Simplified Employee Plan, I think it stands for. And it's mostly for self-employed small businesses. The simple, same idea. It's a plan for smaller businesses. I think you can't have more than 100 employees. And they have a lower limit. Well, the SEP IRA has a limit that's based on your earnings, 25%. But the Simple IRA has a limit that's a little lower than I guess 2/3 of it, $12,500. But still, that's a lot of money to put away. And the cool thing about the Simple, from the vantage point of the employer, is that they are much cheaper and much easier to run than the 401ks, 403bs, which are very, very accounting heavy. It's insane how difficult it's gotten to work with a 403b. I can tell you that from first-hand knowledge, dear students. The Simple 401k is more for somebody who's self-employed, usually just somebody who has a sole proprietorship and just is one employee or maybe two employees. The KEO you don't hear too much about, but I just love the name. It reminds me of The Wizard of Oz. At the end, where they're in the witch's castle, yo-hee-yo, KEO, yeah, right. And then the Roth IRA, which is very similar to the traditional IRA, except it's turned around. Instead of the tax break now, you get a tax break later, and we'll discuss these in detail later on. The Roth 401k, the Roth 403b, well, they're really not called that. We really should put quotes around them. But the idea here is you're going to use your 401k like a Roth IRA. You're going to get the tax break later. And they have the same limits as the 401k and 403b. The first 5 all work very much like the traditional IRA. You get a tax break now, you pay taxes in retirement. The Roth IRA, the Roth 401k, the Roth 403b, you don't get a tax break now, you get a tax break later. Slide 15. So let's take a look at some examples and see how this works. You work at a company that has a 401k, 403b. You contribute via your paycheck $100. Great. What is going to happen? Well, the feds and the state of California have a perk for you. They have a little gift they want to give you. Depending on your marginal tax rate, which I know you wanted to forget about after Chapter 3, but you can't, you will see $25 fewer dollars taken out of your paycheck for federal tax withholding. And, 6 or it's actually 7, but let's use 6 or 8. Depends. The brackets don't match. Let's say $8 that the state of California will not take out of your paycheck. So you're basically getting a subsidy of about $31 to $33. Again, the higher your tax bracket, the more it's going to be worth. Cool. Your take-home pay is only reduced by $67, while the whole $100 goes into your account. You get a tax break now. And we're not even including any match that your company may give you. Typically, 401ks have a match. 403bs don't because they're public institutions. But let's say you put $100 in and they give you 50 or 100. What a deal. What a fabulous deal. Who's going to give you a 50% or 100% return on your money in one day? Your employer. That's who. And why? Because they don't want you to... they don't want to give you the traditional pension plan. Once you leave, they want you gone. They don't want to think about you anymore. And again, that's the problem. It's a good problem to have. It means that we're living longer, but it's a problem. So the whole $100 goes into the account, and you're only seeing $67 or less, or a little bit more, depending on your marginal tax bracket, reduced from your paycheck. And you might get a match. What a great deal! Okay, what's the catch? Slide 16. There's always a catch. Well, you pay income tax on any amounts withdrawn in retirement. Well, you didn't pay taxes going in. And people in retirement are usually in a lower tax bracket. If you're not in a lower tax bracket when you retire, congratulations. That means you're taking out tons of money out of your retirement accounts. And my sincerest desire is that all my students, all my clients, and myself have that horrible problem in our golden years that we're taking out too much money out of our retirement accounts. Anyway, also, is this money you're going to... No, you're not going to withdraw the funds from retirement because you'll pay the income tax and you'll pay a 10% penalty. So in other words, you kiss this money, give it a little kiss, send it on its way, and I'll see you later in 20, 30, 40 years. And this is what your employer used to do for you in the traditional pension defined benefit plan. The difference is you didn't see it. Sometimes you saw it, but you didn't see it, and they were the ones that did the investing. And maybe they did a pretty good job, but they usually took a much more conservative approach than what is warranted for the vast majority of us. So the reality, folks, is that you have the potential to have a very comfortable retirement if you invest prudently, wisely, consistently, and don't panic when the markets fall. But those are big ifs, aren't they? Right? Exactly. Now, let's take a look at the Roth IRA, the Roth 401k, the Roth 403b. What's the big difference? Well, you don't get a tax break now, dear students. Let's say you contribute to a Roth $100 through your checking account. Well, what do the feds give you? Nothing. What does the state of California give? Nothing. So what's your subsidy? Nothing. Nothing. They're not giving you a tax break now. Your disposable income is reduced by $100. You put in $100 and you see $100 out of your, if you do it through a 401k, 403b take-home pay, or $100 out of your checking account or savings account. So you might think, well, Payano, Why should I contribute to a Roth IRA? Slide 18. This is what you're going to say to your friends or family when they say, well, why should I contribute to a Roth IRA? You're going to say, because a Roth IRA is so cool. Well, maybe you won't say that, but that's what I say. It is, folks. It is a golden opportunity. Tax-free in retirement. Apples to apples, no other investment choice comes close on an after-tax basis. Now, there are some scenarios where it probably would make sense for you to take the tax break now. And some people say, don't you trust those government people? 20, 30 years from now, they're going to find a way to tax your Roth IRA. Oh, maybe, I don't know. Maybe if you're pulling out $200,000 or more, they'll say, yeah, you have to pay taxes on the extra 200, anything above that. I don't know. I doubt it, because people in their elder years, they have canes and they vote. I think they're just going to say after 20, 30 years, no more contributions. I don't know. We'll see. They're very popular, so we'll see what's going to happen. Plus, the other cool thing about the Roth IRA is that the contributions can be withdrawn at any time with no penalty. Look, you already paid tax on the contributions. So you're not going to have to pay any taxes or penalties on the contributions. So you can take them out at any time. Now, you'd rather not. You'd want to leave them in there for compounded growth. If you take out more than your contributions, then it becomes like the IRA, the 401k. You're going to get a 10% penalty, have to pay the taxes, and a 10% penalty. Now, there is an exception for that 10% penalty. If you purchase a new home, in other words, you haven't owned a home for 2 years, higher education, medical disability, then they waive the penalty. But for the most part, you just want to leave it in there. But the Roth IRA then becomes an excellent intermediate term investment account for the purchase of a house, other high-ticket item, or great for college expenses. People will ask me, should I start a college fund for my child? I say, have you contributed to a Roth IRA yet? Have you put the maximum if you have a Roth IRA yet? And they say no. I say, well, do that, because think about it, folks. Currently, as the law stands now, the FAFSA form that you fill out doesn't ask for how much money is in your Roth IRA. But if you have set aside any money for children in a 529 educational savings account, then yes, they want to know that, and they reduce your financial aid correspondingly. So I tell people, and again, that it's up to you, but those educational savings plans are usually for people who have already maxed out their retirement accounts. They have plenty of disposable income. Yeah. After you've maxed out your Roth IRA, let's talk about educational savings plans. Cool? And I know many people who have rated their Roth IRA for that down payment on a house, because the cool thing about a house is that you can live in it. You can't live in a Roth IRA. Slide number 19. But the Roth IRA is not for everyone. Well, that's what we're supposed to tell you. We're not supposed to say everyone should have a Roth IRA. And I don't care. I'm going to tell you everyone should have a Roth IRA. Well, there are limits, though, on the Roth IRA contributions. Once you make over a certain amount, and that changes every year. In 2018, it's $120,000 for a single taxpayer and $189,000 for a couple. You then see your contribution limit phase out. You're able to contribute less and less until afterwards. After a certain amount, you can't contribute anything. And if you don't qualify, congratulations. But the truth is, and this is, folks, this is the reality. See if you follow me on this. You can still contribute to the Roth IRA anyway. Huh? Why did they allow you? Well, you don't know how much you're going to make any one year, especially if you're on commission or have a business. And so you contribute to the Roth IRA. And then if you find, or you knew from the get-go, that you're over the limit, then what you do is you recharacterize That's the verb that the IRS uses. You recharacterize the contributions into a traditional IRA, which does not have the same contribution limits, before you file your taxes. Actually, I think you have until October of the next year. And then you immediately convert the traditional IRA back into the Roth. I've helped many people do this. It's insane, folks, but that's the law. I know. Who voted for these oh, yeah, we voted for them. I love it when people complain about the government. Oh, that darn government. And it's like, in a democracy, the government is a reflection of the people. And they look at you and they say, what are you trying to say? I say, well, when you look at the Congress, you look at the government, you're looking at ourselves. We're looking at ourselves. It's a mirror. Not a pretty picture, is it? Oh, well. Nothing's perfect. Slide number 20. This is really cool, folks. If you're not a very high-income wage earner, you could qualify for a tax credit. Put $50 a month, $600 into a Roth IRA, get $300 back. Now, I think there's a provision that if you're a full-time student, they don't allow you to do this. But these are not that high limits. $31,500 for a single filer. This is the adjusted gross income. Remember, the bottom of the page 1 on the 1040 form. $63,000 for married filing jointly. That's not too shabby. And $47,250 for a head of household. So, in other words, you contribute to a Roth IRA, a 401k, and the feds will give you money back for doing it. They're trying to, they want you to contribute, even if you're not making a ton of money. And remember that a tax credit is a dollar for dollar reduction of your income taxes. We love tax credits. Now, if you do your own taxes, don't forget this. And if you have someone do them for you, make sure you remind them that you made contributions to a retirement account. Okay? Because TurboTax and the others handle this very easily. They say, oh, did you contribute? Yes. Okay. Oh, cool. You're going to get a tax break. You're going to get a tax credit. Slide 21. The Roth 401k, the Roth 403b. Now, we put these in quotes because that's not what the IRS calls them. That's not what their legal name is. They're just a 401k or 403b that allows you to place after-tax dollars into your accounts. Now, your employer does not have to offer the option. It's up to the employer. They can choose not to, but most of them do because they have other people handling the paperwork anyway, so what do they care? It works like a Roth IRA, but the big difference is the contributions cannot be taken out. So you can't rate it like you can a Roth IRA for a down payment on a home or like. Plus, you have to keep track of how much was post-tax, after-tax dollars, and how much was pre-tax. Because again, as we mentioned before, you don't want the IRS coming back and saying, oh, it's all taxable when you go take it out. So you have to keep track of what the IRS calls your basis, which I don't think is a very nice name, but that's what they use. What is your basis? How much of it is taxable? How much of it is not taxable? And this option is popular with the workers in lower tax brackets because they don't necessarily need, nor do they get a big amount from the tax break now. I don't think they're quite as good as the Roth IRA, especially because you can't, pull the money out, the contributions out for a down payment on a house. But if your company matches your contributions, because the matching will be pre-tax, so you'll have pre-tax and post-tax. It's a little bit confusing. But if your company matches, then it's a winner. Do it. I mean, that's free money. You put in $100, they put in $50, they put $100. Don't turn that down, dear students. Take that and run. And that is your money as soon as they give it to you. There are some systems where they vest the amount they give you. But in a 401k, boom, it's yours. Slide 22. Remember we talked about Social Security, and yes, it's going to be around. Don't worry, but it's not, nor was it ever meant to be the full retirement system for Americans. And somewhere along the line, people got it in their heads that Social Security was going to take care of everything. And I've met some of them living in Morelia, Mexico, where you can get a nice 2-bedroom apartment for $200 a month. And the food is not that much cheaper, but cheaper than the United States. And they have pretty decent health care. And I met people who were living off of their Social Security there, learning Spanish as I was learning Spanish. So you see, only about a quarter, one leg of a 3- or 4-legged stool. Right, a chair. That's the idea. Okay, now, speaking of social insecurity and fear of the future, in our next presentation we will discuss the baby boom retirement time bomb. I know it's a catchy title, but it's not really as serious as it sounds because we're living through it, and so far it hasn't been as bad as the dire projections have been in the past, but still, there's serious problems that we have to deal with. And as always, I'm fairly optimistic that we will, or we won't. We'll see. See you in our next presentation, dear students, on how baby boomers are suffering or succeeding through retirement.